this YouTube stuff. How's it going? Welcome to the third episode of the Alternate Football Podcast. If this is your first time watching, my name is Neil Baxter. I am a football fiend, and I am here to cover all the football leagues out there that are not covered as often, such as this Canadian Football League, Alliance of American Football League, Arena Football League, the American Flag Football League. Those are all the types of things that I'm going to be covering in this podcast more often. And this past weekend was a great weekend for football. It was I was able to see one of my teams, my alma mater, Kennesaw State, go into SunTrust Park, have their first home game in SunTrust Park, and beat the Jacksonville State Gamecocks in a 5 overtime game, and it was amazing. So I had a good football weekend, even though my Falcons lost, but we're not here to talk about the NFL. Whatever, Falcon season is done. But we're going into one of the best weeks of football. I'm so excited. Thanksgiving in the United States is the best week of football because on Thursday you have the Cowboys, you have the Detroit Lions game. You also get now they have the new late night game, which this year is my Falcons, even though they're having this depressing year. I'm still going to watch the game because it's Thanksgiving in the United States. And then you get championship football, old school outdoors in the cold type championship football in the Grey Cup every American Thanksgiving. Like, I know you Canadians do it in October for some reason. I have no idea why. If you want to let me know, leave a comment, email us, send me a DM on Instagram, however you want to do it. Let me know why you guys do it in October for some reason. The reason I keep looking back, because of course it's Monday night. I got Monday Night Football on behind me. Right now it's Kansas City 17, Rams 16. Just so you know about what time. And the Rams just scored again. Okay, so never mind. They just scored a touchdown. So it's now 22, and picked off. Okay, so, but not talking about the NFL. Of course, I'm going to go on tangents, especially when I'm talking by myself right now. I'm going to go on tangents about football and other things. Just get used to it. So let's go get into the main topic that I wanted to go on. Is we're talking about the Canadian football, the Grey Cup this year is going to be between Ottawa and Calgary. I believe those are the ones I predicted were going to go in the first episode. If I'm wrong, let me know. I'm not going to go back and check, but I think I'm right. And if I'm wrong, just tell me. So we'll first go into the East final. That was not as good as a game. Obviously, the West final was a heck of a lot better than the East final this year. Ottawa finished the game 46-27. Trevor Harris threw for 90% completion percentage for Ottawa, which is insane. 29-32, like 90%. That is nuts. Like, I don't even. He had 6 touchdowns with no interceptions. And then for rushing, William Powell had 86 yards. Receiving, just going through down the stats, Greg Ellison, 144 yards, 60 yards after catch, only 8 receptions. That's he had one long 50-yard catch, which was amazing. Obviously, the rookie sensation kicker for them this year, Lewis Ward, he came up big. Other than that, I mean, it was an all-out blowout. Like, even though it's 46-27, it wasn't even that close. Like, it was a blowout before the first half was over. Um, let's go through some of Hamilton's stats here. Jeremiah Masoli. So Harris had 90%. Masoli had 68% completion percentage, which normally most of the time that would be good. That's like a normal completion percentage that you should see with most quarterbacks, even in the Canadian Football League where there's more passing than the NFL or the NFL or college football. But the big problem was 3 interceptions from Masoli. That's quite bad. You can't turn over the ball 3 times just in passing, and expect to win any game. Not even Canadian football or any football. It doesn't matter. Pee wee all the way down. You can't throw that many interceptions and expect to win the game. So that's what happened in the East final. The West final was a much more entertaining game. It was between, acting like I don't even know it. I was just pulling up the stats here. It was between the not Ottawa Red Blacks, that's East. Calgary Stampeders and Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I have a certain disdain for Winnipeg just because that city stole my Atlanta Thrashers. Of course, I shouldn't be bitter about that. I'm bitter about it. But anyways, so in the West Finals, let me pull up the box score so I can get a little bit more info. Obviously, Calgary 22, Winnipeg 14. That one was a heck of a lot closer than the first game. It was a much more defensive battle. It was much more closely matched. I do think that both offenses struggled a bit more than Ottawa did in the East. It was a more entertaining game to watch because it was a much more rivalry game than the first game, Hamilton versus Ottawa. So it had that distinctive feeling to it. Maybe not as much as the Saskatchewan and Winnipeg game. That one really was like an old school, like Canadian Big East, like a weird mix between Big East football and arena football mix, but like traditional Canadian football. Like if I want to show someone what Canadian football is like, I would show the Western semifinal of Winnipeg versus Saskatchewan, and that would probably give an American who knows some football what the Canadian football style is like. So 22-14. Go through some of the stats on Calgary side. Bo Levi Mitchell, 54.8, 214 yards, 3 touchdowns. Rushing, biggest rusher was Don Jackson, 14 carries, 83 yards. Receiving, they had leading receiver was Eric Rogers, 6 receptions, 61 yards. Richard Sandani, 3 receptions, 44. So, okay spread. Not really anything on kickoff returns or punting or anything. On the defensive side, there were just no interceptions. On the Winnipeg side, mainly Matt Nichols had a 46, a below 50%, 46.9 completion percentage, which isn't good. I know you Winnipeg guys, you love Matt Nichols for some reason. I do not know why. I am not a big fan of him, but of course, I guess I'm a little biased. Andrew Harris was still amazing, like he always is. Still got 17 yards. still got 71 yards on 13 carries. So he was pretty much the only player that did anything for Hamilton. Although he didn't have any touchdowns. So going back to, well, although they did have a forced fumble and one fumble recovery on the defense. So the defense did well for Winnipeg, not so much the offense. Now for the Grey Cup coming up this weekend, I am very excited. It's going to be a rematch from a couple years ago. Calgary Stampeders versus Ottawa Redblacks, and I think this one's going to go down exactly the same way. It looks like most of the people that are voting on polls I've seen on Instagram and Twitter and all that really think it's really going to come down to be a very close game, and I don't disagree. I do think it'll probably be a somewhat close game. I think it might be within 10 points. I don't think it'll be a one-score decision, like within a touchdown, 7 points. I believe it's going to be touchdown and a field goal and maybe a rouge. If you're watching this and you're not a CFL fan, a rouge is when you get 1 point for, I guess, it's kind of like a safety, but only on a kick. Like if you punt the ball through the end zone or the runner puts a knee down in the end zone, where normally you would just get a touchback. Well, they get the touchback, but you also get 1 point. So it's very cool. I really wish maybe the NFL picked up something along those lines. It's kind of a cool trick. Alliance of American Football League, I'm looking at you. You want to put in some extra new fun rules and change it up a little bit. I think you should add the rouge. I love the rouge. So back to the Grey Cup. There we go on one of my tangents that I'm going to do all the time. Back to the hey, thank you for joining me, Fleet Fanatics. Join on YouTube too, man. So let me just say this one thing about what I think is going to happen in the Grey Cup this weekend. I really do think that the Grey Cup will be Ottawa's to win. Ottawa will win the Grey Cup, probably, I would say 32-20 or 32-22. It's going to be like 1.5 scores. It's going to be a 10-point spread. I very much would love to see I want to see snow. I want to see cold conditions. I want to see people just freezing their butts off watching in the stands, because that's what I love about Canadian football. It is straight up very similar to like Packers games. Like if you watch like a Packers playoff game in Lambeau, but imagine like every single game is like that. It's one of the things that I love about Canadian football, and that I really think they need, that more Americans should check out. And also it starts in June, so I think it's great. So I think Ottawa this year will be the Grey Cup champions again. And that's it. So I will bring up a couple more things about, like, since we're getting in and getting closer and closer to the Alliance Alliance of American Football League is kicking off. Here's a few things that I wish that the Alliance of American Football League would pick up from the Canadian Football League. I think they should have at least one. This is also an arena thing. One wide receiver in forward motion. I personally love that in arena football. In the Canadian Football League, they allow wide receivers to just run around like crazy. I think that's a little bit too much, but I think if you let one, Apollo always joining in almost every week. He will every week, I can guarantee it. Say hello to Apollo, and no, he's not named after the Orlando Apollos. I named him, he's like 5 years old, so I did not name him after Orlando Apollos. So go Legends. Um, I wish it would pick up forward motion of a receiver. I think they would. It would be a cool idea to add the rouge from the Canadian Football League. Like if someone gives up um, in the end zone, they get the touchback out to. I don't know what the alliance is. I hope it's the 25, like college, as opposed to the 20. Um, Out to the 25, and then give the kicking team 1 point. It just adds an extra flair. I do like the fact that they're eliminating field goals and saying, okay, you can get a 2 point conversion if you give it the one. But I really think they should pick up the XFL rules for extra points. So I don't know if you remember back in 2001 what the XFL rules were, but I think the XFL had the best ones. The XFL rules were from the 3, you have to go for essentially what we call a 2 point conversion, go for another touchdown. From the 3, you get 1 point. If you go for 2, it's from the 5. If you go for 3, it's from the 10. So you could have a 3 point extra point if you score another touchdown from the 10. And sometimes they did that. Like I remember once in the XFL playoffs, the Orlando Rage went for 3. I believe they didn't make it, and so they wound up losing the game. I think that was like at the end, like the final play, if I'm remembering correctly, but let's be honest, this was 2001. It's been kind of a little bit of a while since I've watched the game. I'll probably look it up on YouTube now because I want to see if I remember it. I think the game's on YouTube. Yeah, I believe it is. So they did not go to the XFL championship game because they didn't make that 3 point conversion. And I love that. Flag football also does that. Flag football also has the same thing. I believe they had it in the American Flag Football League. And I think it's a cool dynamic and very fun to put an extra strategy to the touchdowns and scoring of the game. Another thing that I've always kind of toyed with, maybe instead of a rouge, so like how I brought up the rouge, like if someone gives up themselves in the end zone. Now they're eliminating kickoffs, and you always get it on the 25. I am not a big fan of that. I do think that there should be some sort of competition. If you did a rouge style thing where if you kick it out of the back of the end zone, you get a point, that might eliminate some of the kickoffs. So you would really want to kick the snot out of it, kick it out of the end zone, you get an extra point. I think that would be a more fun way of doing it. And even if you wanted to make it more challenging, kick it out the back of the end zone. But if you kick it through the uprights, you get 2 points. So you get a kicker with a massive leg, put them on the 30 or 35, and say, okay, man, try to kick it through the uprights, kick the snot out of it. So I would like that to happen. Other rules that I think should be implemented, I really don't think Alliance will implement any of those that I just suggested, but I hope maybe a league like the XFL, because maybe the X stands for experimental now, might start playing around with the rules a bit more, make like another style of football separate from the NFL. I know Alliance is trying to stick very close to the NFL in terms of rules and safety and that kind of stuff, but I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. I would like to see more experimental things. So maybe the XFL might pick up some of these ideas. I'm just putting them out there. Another idea I had is the same rule that the Rutgers coach came up with, just give them 4th and 10 from the 25, and if you want to go for it, go for it, and if you want to punt it away, punt it away. I don't dislike that rule. I like that better than just eliminating kickoffs whatsoever. Another rule that I really liked, you remember a couple years ago when the NFL played the Pro Bowl and they had the skinnier uprights for the field goals? I love that. I I like the fact that extra points are more difficult now, but I also think that friggin' field goals are too easy. So everyone complains, "Oh, the kicker is not good. The kicker's the least athletic, least important player of the game." Okay, well then let's make him more important. Make having a good kicker very important. Let's make it harder on him so there's more intensity to him possibly making a kick. So that's why I like the idea of having an extra point if you kick it through the uprights from on a kickoff, or maybe if he hits a 50-yarder, give him 4 points. I don't know. I like that idea. Or another idea I had made. Oh well, I just mentioned it. What the NFL did with moving the field goals closer together, a la like arena, because I know a lot of NFL kickers have arena size, the little 9 foot field goals up for practice, because if you can hit those little skinny ones, you can definitely hit the big wide ones. So make it a little bit narrow, make it about 19 feet wide, just like what you had at the Pro Bowl a couple years ago in Miami. And then I would like to see them instead of using the really close hash marks, use the really wide ones and force them to kick from those wide ones. Like no more, oh, okay, you line up. Like maybe on an extra point, you have to choose between the two hash marks based off if you're a righty or a lefty, you get, or wind conditions or whatever. You get to choose, but use the college hash marks. And I think they should use the college hash marks even in play calling. I prefer how it gives a definite wide side and a definite tight side. And I like the way that kind of gives option runs more strength. Like pro style offense in the NFL really uses those narrow hash marks and makes it very important to use the a very good quarterback. And I do think option is starting to pick up more steam in the NFL, mainly because players are more used to running option plays all through high school and college. And I do think moving more to an option style will actually be safer on concussions. Now, I don't know anything. This is just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. If you know any statistics or anything that shows that option actually might make the sport more dangerous, let me know. I'm very curious what any of you would like to say on the matter. If you would like to let me know, just let me know. So I would like to see a real look at a bunch of different ways of changing up the sport in terms of just like rules, making different styles or blending of styles, which like other sports like rugby, like let's take rugby for example. Rugby had a very similar beginning as football does. They essentially started as a very similar sport, and then in the early 1900s, they really started to split off into different forms when they introduced the forward pass. That's really when the two sports really started to diverge. Their first divergence is when football introduced the idea of downs, first down, second down, third down, fourth down. And some rugby leagues, like the league that I can't remember which league they are, but there's a Canadian team in Toronto that plays, and they have 7 downs, but not downs in the way that they have a play. They get tackled and they have to pass it off to the back, and they can only do that 7 times before they have to kick it forward. So some rugby has picked that up, and that's just a different form of it. And being a season ticket holder of arena football for so many years, I really did think that picking up different rules, like how in arena football you had the box, you have the 5 yard box that you couldn't get that out, and also the linebackers couldn't leave that box. Um, I'm not a huge fan of that one, but it made a different style. It made a more wide open passing league and less of a running league. So you got running backs that were like massive. Essentially, they were just extra linemen. That's really what they were. Um, and then you had the forward motion receiver. They probably picked that up from Canada, since Canada's always had of receivers just running around everywhere, going crazy. Um, if you picked up that, I just like, maybe the sport doesn't have to be exactly the way the NFL is. Maybe there's room for growth in different forms of football. I do think some rule changes might make it safer. The concussion stuff is very important to take care of the players. I do like the move towards less hitting in practices, just save it for the game. I think on the professional level, these guys, they know how to hit. They got in a bad practice of hitting, like going all out and hitting hard with all the padding on, which they're slowly starting to change from. But they're getting more shoulder hits, which is good. I do think they're going to move, the sport as a whole will move more to more wide open passing, more option plays. I think the players will get smaller. I don't think we're going to have 300-pound offensive and defensive linemen anymore. I think that you're going to get faster guys. It's going to be more like arena football. You're going to be passing a lot more. You're going to be doing more trick plays, more option plays, that kind of stuff. You're not going to be doing the all-out hits because they're literally regulating it out of the game. And I would not have a problem with the new leagues coming up pulling out some of those rules to already start that transition. One of the things so getting back onto arena football, they need to bring back the Iron Man. I just want to mention that. I will get more into this when the Arena Football League starts coming up. I will talk about all the ways arena football has gone down the crapper. And one of the reasons is getting rid of the Iron Man. That is one of the things that made arena football special. Lions should not do that, and neither should the XFL. On a full-size football field, the Iron Man doesn't make any sense. And especially since those are more designed to be a training ground for officials and players moving into the NFL. And also just being closer to what most Americans enjoy. That'll probably be the show for tonight. If you got any comments, questions, just leave a comment on this video. Send me a DM on Instagram, Alternate Football Podcast on Instagram, alternatefootball.podcast@gmail is my email account. Just drop me a line there, leave a chat or comment in the YouTube video. If you want to join me on this podcast, if you're a diehard football fan like me and you just want to have a football conversation, as long as you got a camera and a microphone, we can do a Google Hangout over the internet and join in the conversation. With that said, enjoy the football. Enjoy your Turkey Day. Enjoy it to the nth extent, because this is the best week of football. I like it more than even the Super Bowl. Like, this week is the best because you got all the big college games, on Saturday. You get a whole day's worth on Thursday. You get your family around if your family loves football. You also get the Grey Cup. You already get high-profile Canadian Championship games. This is by far the best weekend of football of the year. So enjoy it, love it, and have a beer for me, I guess. Or as one of the reasons why I started this podcast, Ross Tucker likes to say, have a daddy soda. So have a good weekend. I'll talk to you on Monday after the Grey Cup. We'll see who turns it out. I think Ottawa's got it. Thanks, guys.